It was a bit too much information earlier, wasn't it?
Well, thank God I only saw the flash then.
You're alive?
Alive. Letting in Mr. Laws. Missing here. Two missing here. No trouble. Councillor Scott.
He's there, darling. He's talking at the end of the table.
Councillor Laws, Councillor Forbes, all on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all coming back. And thank you for your very good debate this morning and very good discussions, because it is the time where we need to have these discussions, and long-term plan is an exceptionally important step that we're going through. So we will continue now. We left to make room for a council meeting, which took precedence, which it had to, and so I'm simply going to go back to that. We were at the stage where we had an amendment moved by Councillor Laws and seconded by Councillor Kelleher, and a proposed amendment, and we had had questions, we had discussion and debate, and now I will go to Councillor Laws as the mover of that motion to have his right of response to that. Councillor Laws. But one moment, please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Could we were in the middle of a discussion about whether the mover and seconder meant a uniform general rate or a general rate, or what they actually meant in that statement. So
100%, and I was just about to ask Councillor Laws to clarify that for council, his exact intention with the regional rate. Was it a uniform annual general rate or just a general rate?
It's a general rate.
Say that right?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry. It is a general rate, so the intent, I don't care about the detail, the intent is that the benefit, the cost is spread over the region.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone. Yep.
Yes, so I've just worked out the cost, or it's been worked out for me, thank you very much. The Wilding Pine rate is $2.30, I think, per rateable unit, and this would be about $2.75, $2.80 per rateable unit. And remember, all we're asking for is, with this motion, is to simply consult. So it's not making a policy decision today, it's just asking the public, would they like to do this?
It's a uniform targeted rate then.
Yes, I suppose that would be the best way of looking at it.
Thank you.
Just for point of clarity, I'm going to ask Mr. Donnelly to put the correct wording in for what that rate would be called under the descriptor that we have from Councillor.
What's been typed up there, a regional uniform targeted rate, regardless of how you put those words around, would mean that that it would be done the same way that the Wilding Pines are, that it's uniform, it's per rating unit. So although Councillor Laws said about 280, you take the amount that we're talking about that was in the paper, that is, the total amount is 283,000 GST inclusive. If you divide it by the 119,000, and you've got about $2.37. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, we need to take out regional then, because that suggests, if we just say uniform targeted rate, that's everyone. Regional suggests in our hands that it's a region, not everyone. So I think we need to take out the word regional in that, because if we consult with people and say regional, they might think there's a region that it applies to. It isn't. It applies to everyone.
We refer to region as the Otago region. If we're cutting it down to a smaller, that's where we say that it's district.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we're telling people, and it's people we're consulting with. So this is in a consultation document, so it should make everybody understand that it's every ratepayer, not a region of anything. Region-wide might help, I don't know.
I would suggest that we put on based on an Otago uniform targeted rate.
Yep.
Otago wide.
So just Otago.
Otago uniform.
Yeah.
Yep. Wide.
Is the mover happy with that?
Yes, have I got it
Wording?
right, reply? Yes, I am, but I've just got 30
Yep.
seconds, if that's all right. While we were in the break, I was looking at other regional councils throughout New Zealand, and perhaps the closest example would be Te Waihora, or we know it as Lake Ellesmere, which is in the Ecan area. That restoration is happening right now by Ecan. We all know where it is. It's nowhere near Christchurch, but it is funded mostly out of general rates, 79%, targeted rate 0, and the rest is funded out of reserves and grants. So I just wanted to give you an example of what's happening with a regional lake of significance, Lake Ellesmere, and another regional council where they have adopted the policy that I'm suggesting.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Keller, you're happy with the changing as
Yes,
seconder?
as that's in
Changing
line
that.
with my thinking.
So is that your closing statement, Councillor
Yes.
Laws?
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, we have the amendment. We have the amendment. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
To the contrary?
No.
Division? We'll call it division. All those in favour?
So this is for.
Oh, yeah, you'll call them anyway, won't you? Yeah, all those in favour in order.
Aye.
Councillor Jeter.
No.
Councillor Forbes.
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs.
Aye.
Councillor Hope.
Yes.
Councillor Kelleher.
Yes.
Councillor Laws.
Yes.
Councillor Malcolm.
No.
Councillor Noon.
Aye.
Councillor Robertson. Did
No.
you say no?
Yep.
Councillor
Sorry, no.
Yes.
Councillor Wilson.
Aye.
And it carries 8-3.
Mr. Chairman, do I now understand that when we go to the substantive one, in that we're saying
It will be amended by this.
it'll be amended by that, but what we are actually saying is that we are still voting for option, I can't remember which one it was, as our preferred option.
Yeah.
All
Option
we've done
one.
of adding this in is adding a choice.
Yes, yep.
You haven't
Yeah.
changed your mind on
It just
that, have
says
you?
possible, so it doesn't say that we've agreed to it in this case anyway.
Preferred, isn't it? Preferred.
No, it just says
Based
possible.
on
Yeah.
what you've seen.
Well, we've made it possible.
wasn't possible until just now.
Circulate them separately. The opposite.
Now I
So-
will add
Probably
this
just like a
to
change.
number
Yeah.
4.
Yep.
That's right, Brian. She's just playing. Don't worry.
So so we will modify this
Yep.
amendment to say that to include it along with
Sloppy.
make sense? Second. The amendment now becomes part of the substantive motion number 4, which was originally moved by Councillor Robertson, seconded by Councillor Calvert.
Are you happy to, Gretchen, are you happy to still continue moving it with that amendment put in?
Want to withdraw your,
You don't have to, you can.
So
I'll withdraw it.
Yep.
I'll move it.
Yeah,
Now we move
I know there's a question coming. Firstly, I'll just take a question from Councillor Scott.
Sorry. If you read that, does it actually have 3 options?
Yeah,
Or has it
that's
just
right.
got 2?
Yeah, it looks like that too.
It says approves the establishment of a targeted rate and the preferred option for funding blah blah of the
That's
inclusion
2,
belong.
and
Shouldn't
then
there
the third one
Does that infer this, Nick, does that say there's 3 options or there's 2?
No, it doesn't say there's. It doesn't say there's. It just says that that we're going to consult on a new targeted rate, and it says that the preferred option will be what's recommended later on. But based on the discussion, there'll now be 3 options presented. Yep.
3 options, yeah.
Put them in.
Thank you.
So shall we make this more clear?
Yes, please.
We split those
And the
bits
preferred option one.
so they don't apply to the words following them, really, do they?
We approve the establishment of a targeted rate
For Lake Hayes remediation,
and
as described, as outlined in the Lake Hayes remediation document, with the addition of. Because what's outlined in that shows a preferred option.
Hold on.
Option 1. I'll just put preferred option 1.
I'll take out outlined in and just put
Yeah.
Preferred
Yeah.
option 1.
1. Because that's what,
Which is a preferred option.
been
It just brings
recommended.
it to the front.
that's right, isn't it, Nick? Option 1 is the.
Yeah, it's option 1 is the
Targeted rate.
preferred
benefits.
And what is this? And the preferred option, please. Is that gone altogether?
Yeah.
Doing another.
And 2 addition, you could just put, and 2
additional options. Yeah, that gives you the
2.
3.
And 3, which was that new resolution.
Right. Please spell it out.
Yeah, I would put and 3, and then maybe brackets
No, but
or something.
preferred option 1, 2 and 3 isn't ideal either.
Yeah.
Maybe an and between the 2 and the 3.
And subsequent options 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got that?
Okay. Approves the establishment
You
of
should engage with us to
option
know how to
1,
put words together.
2, and 3.
And subsequent options 2 and 3.
As opposed to preferred.
Or just preferred options 1, 2 and the subsequent one, in brackets, preferred option 1 at the end, so it shows that it's.
Because you're trying to do
No,
2
because I
things
think
at
you've
once.
got to be
Peter.
really clear about
just
what the preferred
let's
option
just,
is.
we correct with that.
Can I suggest something?
Yep.
We approve the establishment of a targeted rate for Lake Hayes remediation, and we approve the, and we state our preference for option 1. Okay?
We have to
With the
refer to the other
subsequent
2.
options 2 and 3 being included in the long-term plan consultation documents.
Say that now, though.
2 and 3 isn't included in the long-term plan because 3 isn't. Sorry.
Technically, the resolution should spell out specifically and not say as in the paper, because the paper is not
Yes,
part
that's
of the
right.
Okay.
resolution.
Yep.
Good.
So, so we just need to be clear what you want.
In 6, you probably need to reference option 3 rather than just an option.
6 is just
Yes.
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Ignore that.
Oh,
you-
okay.
You need to have that written somewhere.
Yeah,
where you're gonna
including the
dash it.
following options:
That's
1,
what
Yeah.
2, in brackets preferred, 3, whatever it is.
Just put each option below.
Yeah.
Yes, so if you just
just
put
Full stop.
display option 1,
And then bullet
And
point
then
the
what it
options
is.
below.
Targeted rate based on scheme benefit zones.
and then B, option 2, and what it is.
River and water management rates, Wakatipu and
Option
Wanaka.
1 being followed by preferred,
3, which is this.
and 3, which is that
Which is
extra one.
target uniform targeted
I
rate.
know what you're saying.
We happy?
Good.
And I just need to
Comfortable?
cut and paste the actual, what the options are.
That's right.
So,
Thank
so
you.
we have recommendation 4, and below that will be bullet pointed the 3 options.
Yep.
So I have a mover for that, please.
I'll move that.
Councillor Calvert, seconded Councillor Hobbs. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Yep. Against is Kelleher, Forbes.
Are you against that,
I'm not
Forbes?
against. I'm not against, I'm for.
No, she's for. It's an echo. No, it's always an echo. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's cool. No, we've only got Councillor Calhoun.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yep.
And so everyone else is for.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Councillor Lawson.
He's
Sorry?
left the meeting. Are you there?
No, I'm here.
Did you? I said for and against.
I'm sorry. You're flashing in and out a bit.
So are you for or against?
Oh, listen, I don't mind. So I'll abstain on that because it's slightly contradictory, but it doesn't matter.
I know we got this into
It's just
you.
what you asked for.
Yeah.
Yes, no, but
No,
but wait on. Option 1 isn't my preferred option.
No.
It's about preferred option.
But we're consulting on them all, so I'm here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say.
Darling. Perfect. Look, thanks very much.
You go to the
Stay
first
calm.
one.
That's just confusing.
Can we bring gin onto the table?
I thought we already had.
Not when you can buy a good whiskey, Marion. 5.
Oops.
Oops.
Yep, so we just go with number 5 now. Oh,
We have a mover for recommendation 5.
When I find it.
So moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Scott.
Can I just,
You may ask a question as well.
no, just make a brief comment.
Yep.
That, I haven't got it in front of me, but there's some quite significant things that we've agreed to here, you know, in terms of external borrowing. But one in particular was using the building reserves for our rates. And I think that'll be quite a significant thing for our community to understand. Just saying that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have any further questions or discussion on recommendation 5? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We now move to our next item,
Significance and engagement
which is
policy.
8.4.
Yep.
Just one moment, we'll just... Need 2 screens up here,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yes.
Eh?
Sometimes, yes.
Don't you? Really?
Yeah.
Even it's bold for me to say something like that because it's not even working for me.
125.
Yeah, I know. My computer's just frozen, so that's all right.
I'm happy to move without the word in the for, in this fourth word. Just be,
What?
there's an extra in the as a fourth word in the fourth recommendation.
No, it's the program review. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, my brain is...
Welcome to the table, Mr. Rossa. Sorry for holding you up for the day. And so you moving that all recommendations with that change of wording,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councillor Calvert. Is there any questions of our team? Comfortable?
Yep.
If not, we'll put the motion. All those in favour of recommendations 1, 2, 3 and 4. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Obviously explained that report very well. No, it was very well put. Thank you. Now we go to 8.5.
128.
I'll move it.
Yes, and I'll second it.
Approves the attached rates remission and postponement policy.
Yeah. 128.
Sarah, is that part of employment rules? Is that you've got to be called Sarah?
You're only,
Good afternoon, Sarah. I'll leave that to you to give us a quick brief on that, or the team to give us a quick brief.
Yeah, look, well, obviously Sarah's here. She's drafted this, but this is quite a substantial revision of our rates, remission and postponement policy. We'd sort of signalled, this has been discussed around the table a few times, that it needs to be reviewed, and we'd said that it would be reviewed as part of leading into the LTP, because as with all these documents you've seen today, they form part of the supporting documents of the long-term plan. So if you've been through it, it does have quite a substantial review. Our previous rates, remission and postponement really only detailed that you could that we'd look at it in the case of financial hardship, serious financial hardship. We've now added a couple of other categories, namely around community groups and looking at remissions around for the possibility of natural and environmental purposes. So again, as with the other policies that what's been in front of you today, this can be edited, and again there'll be a final version of this available for comment as part of the consultation process, and then it'll be finalised again and adopted prior to the LTP being adopted in June.
Question first, Councillor Scott.
I was just simply going to say that I thought this was a very generous policy proposal, like rating into common ownership, as you said, extreme financial hardship, community spalding and other organisations, land use for natural, historical, cultural, conservation purposes. I thought it was very generous and very mature. As a matter of interest, have you run a scenario in terms of a budget for it?
Some of these things that we've formalised here happen anyway, like the contiguous properties. As they're done, they're happening anyway. So some of these things won't actually change what we're already doing. It just makes sure that it's formalised and it's very clear to the public how that works. Some of these other things, it really depends on who comes to us and what they're proposing. But what we've put in here, the criteria, is that it's not just, we're not just proposing that somebody goes, I think my property, I should get this. They've actually got to have their land covenanted. It has to be for genuine public interest. So it has to be available for free public use. So you've got to be able to get to it. We'll assess that criteria as we come. You'd think, yes, there'll be some, but again, the quantum, we're not anticipating that it's going to be material.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Hobbs.
I'm delighted to see the work done on this. Thank you, because it's hard stuff. And I just wanted to check two things. One is some councils work on the basis that community groups that, to save you work, that they actually renew these every 3 years rather than every year. And I can't recall if that's in there. I didn't think I saw it.
It depends on the type of remission, but whether we need them to review. So it's the contiguous properties with the conjunction with TLA information. That is something that we do review each year as part of our rate strike process.
I was thinking if someone has to apply to you each year to get rates of remission for the hall that is doing a great job and they get remission for because it's a great community asset or whatever.
Yeah. As it goes through, I think it has in there that we would, when we do it, we state the period that it's for. And most of them say that they'll be reviewed every 3 years. Basically that would allow for up to 3 years to be done at a time. And like you say, if you know that it's going to be ongoing, like that, we might say, rather than doing 1 year, we might say 2, we might say 3, but it'll be a case-by-case basis.
And the only, there's two parts to my next question. One is the report back, because I think that's in the transparency of it, just understanding that. But the other one is, I think you put in here somewhere that you had to apply before the financial year, which is problematic. And I think, did I pick that up right somewhere?
It depends on which category you're applying under. So obviously the penalties, that would be when we're that current year, but there are certain, like the Marie freehold land one, you would ideally like them to be applying for the year coming out. So it really does depend on which type. And again, community groups in terms of for the new financial, you wouldn't want the application to come after you've struck the rates in terms of if they're looking for you to consider rates remission, you would like them to be applying by the 30th of June, so you can consider it as part of your rating for the new financial year.
Yeah.
And that's making sure people understand what their rates will be and well in advance. So when we strike it, we understand that on the 30th of June. Will they understand that, what their bill will look like?
Well, we have the estimator too. So in terms of for that period leading up to before we actually strike rates, the estimator is available online, or they can contact us and we can give them an estimated view. They won't know the exact.
Yeah, and if you're a community group, I may be looking after my own affairs, but I'm probably not necessarily looking after the 10 other community groups that I'm looking after in the best light. And it's just that nervousness, because a lot of people won't be thinking about the community group, they might be thinking about themselves, that I'm just wondering why it has to be the 30th. I'll leave it there. Someone can submit on it.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, dear. How many applications do we receive for hardship, either postponed or remitted currently? Just a ballpark. Is it 20s or 100s?
So no, in terms of hardship to actually have their entire rates remitted, in terms of we've had people contact us in terms of payment plans, that's usually the scenario. In the last couple of years, I can't sort of think of like lots of cases. There might have been one or two in the last couple of years.
It might have got totally remitted. Yeah. And about postponed, it's only postponed. It doesn't mean that you have to pay it the following year, or you have to pay your rates for the following year, but you don't pay double.
Yeah. In terms of we try and work with our ratepayers in terms of, okay, meeting the 31st of October, or we've got the triennial DD once they've cleared their arrears rates and working them in that respect. So that's how we try and manage those.
Okay. And you don't have very many apply for that?
Not so
like 20s? Not even that?
Virtually none. You know what?
Do you think that's because people don't know?
Yeah.
I think it's probably a combination of the fact that amounts are quite small. I mean, rates remission is difficult. You know, serious
hardship.
Financial hardship.
Yeah.
I mean, most people, my view would be they're not applying because they rates is something they realise that they have to pay.
Yeah.
So they will pay it. What they contact us for is, can I, have a payment plan or defer some of the payment or whatever. But most people are saying, yeah, I'll pay. I just can't. I just want to spread it a bit.
Okay.
As opposed to I don't want to pay at all, because the question to that would be, well, yes, you might be under serious financial hardship, but you own a property. Yeah. So why would we necessarily remit their rates completely when, in fact, if they don't pay it, it'll just stay on the bill. Eventually, the property will be sold and we will get our money. So there's not really it's a very difficult one. But I think most people know that, and for that reason, they don't apply for it.
Do you alert CAB and the Budgetary Advisory Service of this? Of this whole thing? Postponement. Do they know?
This is the fact that you can rates remission and postponements noted on the back of the invoice, isn't it? So we don't advise those agencies, but every ratepayer, when they get their invoice, is advised that this is available to them.
They are aware of it though.
Yeah.
But budgetary advisors would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Calvert.
Are we able to have, and I can appreciate that this might be in a public excluded environment, a reasonably fulsome report on how this is used after it's, can we incorporate in this new policy something that says that how this will be reported back to council, I don't know, whether 6 monthly or something, in a version that we can actually talk about it.
Generality.
Yeah, generality. So as we know what effect it's having and things sort of built into it, that it needs to come.
We report our rate strike. Obviously, we have the rates resolution come. We report on how much we strike, and collection as at the various points and penalties, we can report on remission and postponement amount. Postponement's probably a little bit, there's a bit more in there, but certainly remissions, would be relatively easy to say we've done X amount.
Just a wider lot of people, so as we know who's using it, whether it's reaching people we'd want it to reach, or
if
there's hardly any anyway.
Yeah, if we were naming individuals, we would do it in public excluded. Yeah. But if we just do it generically with here's the number and the, and we could do the type of, remission that they're under if it's generic, but once we start identifying exactly who it is, we'd
contiguous ratepayers, or are they mostly church groups, or what? Who are they?
I mean, I guess there's a big chunk of the farmers and things like that because they've got multiple pockets of land that are contiguous on, for example.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Moon.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure whether it's a question for Sarah or Nick, but we've got contiguous rating units. Let's say there's a block of land and 5 different titles. They pay 5 general rate charges with regards to a targeted rate. Would they then only pay 1 targeted rate for those contiguous properties that are used for the same purpose, i.e. a farm or a whatever?
It's that uniform, so it's the wilding pines, the civil defence, and that other general rates of sort of those $20, $30 rate types. So in terms of your main property would incur 1 set of those charges, but your other 4 would not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Have we someone that would like to move that recommendation on page?
I'll move.
Move.
I
think we did it before, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we did it before. Yeah. More than happy.
All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried.
Good.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nick.
It was really good.
Now we go to our next. Oops, sorry. Notice of motions. A notice of motion. We have if we're going to page 143.
Right.
Our recommendation is we consider this motion by Councillor Calvert, and I'll hand to Councillor Calvert to avail us of the detail and the intent. Thank you.
The background that comes with this notice probably explains where I'm coming from with it. I was concerned basically for 2 things. One, that the Queenstown Lakes people have been particularly hardly affected more by COVID than some, and that by Queenstown Lakes I would also include Cromwell and other places, except that they're not relevant to this particular motion. But it is important to me that we acknowledge the stretch that Queenstown area people have been asked to make. They have, to some extent, taken the brunt of protecting all of the rest of us from the COVID effects, in the sense of all being locked up for months at a time. And I have put in this background that not only have they been hit worse, but this Queenstown business case to do with public transport and avoiding the congestion that we've had in Queenstown is something that the Queenstown people need to happen. But on top of the Queenstown people needing it to happen, the government has every reason to want to help them make it happen. It will reduce carbon, which we all care about. It will show compassion, which we understand that the government likes to do, for Queenstown, since they've taken a hit for the rest of us. It does allow some breathing space for Queenstown residents to recover, and at the same time it keeps this project moving because it's really important that it keeps moving. So if the Queenstown people can see that there's movement towards achieving better public transport and reduction of congestion and a mode shift towards other ways of getting about in Queenstown, at the same time as them not having to have this increased targeted rate burden to achieve it, then that would, to my mind, be a win-win. A win nationally, a win for Queenstown, and a win for all of us in Otago. And I think it's an important signal for us to give that every opportunity we can take to help our ratepayers achieve what we want to achieve and still do it with the least economic impact that we can, the better it is. So that's what's behind this motion. I would be happy to, if this is passed, I would be happy to engage with the chair and anyone else who feels like it to help construct what this letter would say, but it would be along the lines of what the background here says.
Have we any questions? And we have Councillor, this motion was seconded by Councillor Wilson. I should have made that clearer.
Just a question.
Councillor Hobbs.
It's a question to you, Hilary, and it is, if this doesn't get so we write a letter off to the Minister, got no problem about doing that. Minister says no, where do we stand then? Are we reverting to where we were?
It's still in the long-term plan.
Yes, it's
still in the long-term plan.
It goes into the long-term plan process.
Yep.
In any case, if the government doesn't want to come to the party.
We still have to do it. We've committed to doing it.
We've committed to putting it in the long-term plan process. So when we get to the end of the long-term plan and we're deciding what we want to do, it will be sitting there.
Okay.
Right. But it also brings, just to answer in the long-term plan sense, it brings to people's attention that there is a proposal for us to spend money in Queenstown on this targeted rate to achieve this objective. And if they want to submit in the long-term plan as a separate issue about it, they're most welcome. It isn't a particular topic of consultation, but it is something that is in there. So if the government won't do it, it's important for the Queenstown people to know that they should be submitting on it if they need to too.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson and councillors.
Speaking to it is.
Oh, sorry. Question. Speaking to it. Well, we'll speak to it and we'll go in that same order. Good. Thank you.
I'm really happy to support this. I think there's the opportunity here, and I like the reference to the ministers because I think there is a number of ministers that this could talk to, COVID recovery being one, but there's transport. I know that the National Land Transport Fund is going to be pretty well hit by blowouts and motorways and other COVID-related bus fare things. So it's a really tight one, just being the minister. But I think the opportunity of Queenstown, which always is a special case, but providing a way forward, looking broadly at solutions to transporters, could be a really interesting pilot here. And we could take that terrible word learnings from how they may roll out some mode shift opportunities here. So I think it's a great way of trying to look at what the new future for Queenstown may be and giving an opportunity to do that work right across the government.
Councillor Scott?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Hilary, I'm going to vote against it. Hilary spoke to me about this issue. But, reflecting on it, it seems to me, we talk about the government, that the government is actually the taxpayer, which is the people in New Zealand, in my view, have already been pretty generous. I think they're already paying half of this particular cost, half of the cost. And here we're asking them to pay the other half. Whereas it seems to me that the people of Queenstown, the local people of Queenstown, they need to have some skin in the game to actually take this whole thing seriously. That's my view. If there's a hardship situation, if there's genuinely a hardship situation in Queenstown, guess what? We've just finished a policy that talks about exactly that, rates remission. And if there's people in Queenstown that have a difficulty, well, you know, I welcome that we've set up this process for this hardship. I go back to what Councillor Decker eloquently said earlier in the day. You know, how does he look at a rate? He said he looked at it from a benefit perspective. Is it a fair perspective? And is it consistent? Sorry to steal the words, Michael. But, you know, I look at all those, I go, hey, the system that we've actually set up where the local people are working in partnership with central government and the regional council, I think has a lot of merit. So I'm sorry, Hilary, in this instance, I'll vote against it.
Councillor Noon.
I support the notice of motion. I think Queenstown is a special case, and this is a genuine attempt from the Otago Regional Council to reduce the burden on local ratepayers in the Queenstown district who are under pressure, and we know that will continue to be. I have spoken with Jim Bolt to explain that this was coming to this committee and the intent of this motion as well. So it won't be a surprise if it is passed. It won't be a surprise to Mayor Bolt.
So I was just seeking some clarity from Councillor Robertson.
Sorry,
Yep.
Councillor Callaghan might have been ahead of me.
Yep.
No, I think you might have been.
Okay, don't worry. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
go.
No,
Saw it.
my left eye's trained.
Mine was just a question, which is, we heard from the CE that she met with the Land Transport Authority yesterday, and there was discussion about, I don't know, what we've been signalling, I guess, and all the CE can say is what we have been signalling, which is that we've got some level of appetite to fund things. So I guess, maybe it might be a surprise. You don't have to answer it, or maybe it isn't a question. It might put you in a... I was just wondering what we have been talking about already, and that we've given a signal, and then maybe we might send a different signal.
Well, it is a co-funding model. The model we have with NZTA is a co-funding model. Has been ever since my involvement. I think it's been that way for a long time. The expectation certainly is that continues. It's entirely over you. I mean, what will happen is that whichever ministers you write to, the departments will be asked for advice. So NZTA will be asked for advice. And I think probably, what was discussed in discussions I've had, which it's a co-funding model. We need to know that you're prepared to make the investment, just like we are. I would be surprised if NZTA met this with, positively, I guess. Obviously, I can't speak for them, but that's just the conversation I had.
Any further questions?
I wasn't a question, it was more a
good as gold
comment. I totally support the motion. I think this is an NZTA issue. NZTA have gridlocked state highways over there at the moment at certain times. They've been involved in the development of the current subdivisions and will be involved in future subdivisions. I think the state highways have not kept up with the development that has occurred there, and there's more development to happen. We will have gridlocked state highways while we are moving towards the quantum change needed to better public transport. And I think for the next 10 years, while that is exponentially growing and the better use of public transport is growing, we will continue to have gridlocked state highways. And until they fix the roads over there or improve the Shotover Bridge, this issue is just going to remain. The families there will continue to be 2-car families or 3-car families or whatever. I don't see that change happening, and I think unless something changes to those roads, that issue remains. So I certainly support this because it's an NZTA issue.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a weeny bit of problem with 3, because I've heard Jim Bolt just about every morning of every day since COVID came in. And he talks about the small number of ratepayers, many of them substantially affected by COVID restrictions. The 3 ratepayers I know in Queenstown aren't. So I just want to know, how bad is that financial situation? I know from conversations I've had in the North Island is that there is a tiredness beginning to come about Queenstown, and we ought to be aware of it. So while I support the notion of writing to the Minister, just a weeny bit worried about how factual that is.
I'll just ask.
So Mayor Bolt was at the meeting yesterday.
Yep.
He expressed his disappointment that, in his words, he feels that government has said, Queenstown, you're on your own. We've done as much as we're going to do, and you're on your own. He spoke about the local economy, in particular, how they had some relief over the sort of Christmas period, I suppose, but that things were pretty dire now. I have to say, you can't usually get a park in Queenstown. You can get a park at the moment, relatively easily, which is kind of a good indicator. He spoke about business owners talking to him most days about their plight. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. I'm no economist, but you know, the housing market seems to have recovered quite nicely. Construction seems to have picked up. But if you're looking at tourism and hospitality, which is what Mayor Bolt was talking about mostly, that's where the problems lie.
See, I have people who tell me who work in shops that they have sold more expensive art in the last 6 months than they've sold in the last 4 years. And that's a trouble. We get totally different stories. I just wish there were some facts and not just Jim Bolt's words. Sorry.
We do get a bit of an economic dashboard from time to time that comes through, and our economist probably has her finger on the pulse in a more specific way. So we could perhaps see if
I don't want to hold it up. I mean, I'm just worried
at some point.
Right.
Any further debate? Any further?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, I'm going.
No.
Council. Yeah. I was going to Council Laws, but I thought you.
No.
Thank you, Council Laws.
I just want to say, in respect of Barrett, listen, I understand that there will be some fatigue around New Zealand that, and perhaps even in Otago, that Queenstown has been the recipient of too much largesse, whether private or public. First through tourism and then through the decline of tourism and the government bailout, which I have to say is over. It really is. But I can tell you, and not anecdotally, that retail in Queenstown is as dead as, and that people are losing their jobs, and that there is going to be no dramatic recovery this year at all. In fact, this winter, it will get very, very grim indeed. Anyhow, putting all that to one side, we're only talking about a relatively small amount of money from the government's point of view. It is a plaintiff plea. I don't expect it to be successful, but you must try. and that is what we are seeking to do.
To Councillor Calvert, you have a right to reply if you require. There's no one else.
If everyone's done. A reply, sort of briefly, I don't have a lot to add except to say to Brian that this is part of a bigger piece of work, and there are 3 parties involved, if you like. There is Waka Kotahi doing, because it's its highway, and they're also involved with the public transport, of course. There's Queenstown Lakes, and there's us. So Queenstown ratepayers don't pay nothing if they don't contribute to this business case. They are already involved in whatever Queenstown Lakes is doing, and Queenstown Lakes has got a serious lot of contribution to this already. This is just the bus part we're talking about, the public transport part. Queenstown Lakes ratepayers will already have a lot of other things they're contributing to here, so this is not the only thing they're doing. It's also, it is a government-wide taxpayers initiative, all the stuff as Marion has been mentioning earlier about Climate Commission and things. It's really urgent that we start doing things to this, and it's, if the government feels the urgency which they tell us to feel, then they should want this report done as soon as possible, and they're the people who can get on with it and talk to each other and do it more efficiently than we can, because they know all the things that need to go into it better than if we did it anyway. So in some respects, it's funding the second half of a project, and in some respects, it is giving it to the government to take over the project who can do it better than us. We're not bored for lack of work. And so to me, it's important that we give the government the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is regarding climate change and the contribution public transport and other things have to make. Their idea that they want us to be moving towards more people walking and other things as a dearly held principle, and the basic principle of being kind. I'm giving them the opportunity with this resolution to show that they are who they have been saying they are.
Yes, just a slight question on 4, that request the chair to write to the relevant ministers. Now, would it be better there if we actually specified the ministers?
The reason I put ministers was that I think there's probably 3 who are particularly relevant to it, but I was going to defer to the Honourable Marion, because she will know better than I will, but it touches on a variety of ministerial responsibility. It touches on COVID, it touches on climate change, it touches on transport. It even touches, I guess, on the environment in its own way. So I was going to leave that open and let our chair, in consultation with me and whoever else, possibly the Honourable Marion, as to who are the appropriate ministers, but I was anticipating that more than one of them. So it didn't focus on the Minister for Transport, because it's way beyond transport.
I would personally just go to 2, and that's David Parker and Michael Wood. And it is better to always, when you're doing this thing, to go to more than one, because you get the 2 political officers inside there have to talk to each other. It just doesn't disappear into the bowels of the various ministry. So the 2 political advisors will pick it up because it's being done. So somebody in David's office and somebody in Michael's office, and they'll talk to each other and they'll combine a reply. I wouldn't go further than that, because, honest to God, if you want it back within 4 weeks, you might be lucky. They're absolutely dying at the moment under the amount of stuff coming through. That's who I'd suggest it to.
I'd either go with that, or my preference would be to leave it open as to whether you would copy in climate change minister or
he's out of cabinet.
Whatever.
He's out of cabinet.
Right. So okay.
Okay.
Well, so maybe
that's why I said David Parker.
Yes. So maybe copy
Mr.
him
Parker,
rather than
Minister Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that?
Can we change that wording? Are you happy? Seconder.
Kate.
There being no further. One moment. Thank you, Dr. Palmer.
Through Mr. Chairman, just seeking some clarification as to what's expected of the government. Just looking at the fourth bullet point on page 145, which reads as if the government would own and deliver the business case, but the recommendation is about them funding it. So just being really clear about what's being asked of the government. Are they funding a business case to be delivered by ORC, or are they taking ownership for the whole thing, including delivery of it?
I'd prefer they took ownership, but if they just want to fully fund it, that's why I do realise the wording was ambiguous, and I'd done that with the intention that if we get to the stage where they say, how would this work, who would own it, then we've won. We've got our result, and I don't care how they do it then. So I would expect if they were fully funding it, they'd probably take it over. But if they don't want to do it that way,
We should still be owning.
Can we not put Minister for the Environment? I appreciate it is Minister for the Environment. There's also Minister for the Revenue and Finance, Associate Minister for Finance. So I'm not sure that it should be just Minister for the Environment, just Minister Parker.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But transport, do leave transport in with Michael Wood because he has a whole lot of other things too.
And the issue that I would have would be that the issue I have would be completely abdicating responsibility, that it is an Otago. We are part of this, and we, at the end of the day, if we were funding to lead it, I would have no problem with that. But I think at the end of the day, we need to be showing leadership to make sure that problem's right. So abdicating, I would assume that we would still be in there.
Well, I understand that all of these projects have been done with and in a cooperative way, and with if you're spending $1.5 million on a business case, there's a lot of consultation and talking to people and what are we doing next going on, and I would expect that we would be fully in the middle of that anyway, because we would be at least 50% funding the next step that this business case was leading to. So we would be fully involved in it, I'm sure.
Would you want to make a comment?
Is that?
No, I suppose I'm just thinking about the bigger picture, which is, and I haven't got the figures in front of me, but if everything pans out with these business cases, I think our share is 200 and something million. Is it given? Can you remember? I think it's something like that, right? Yeah, it's over 200 million anyway, right?
Can you please?
So what I'm wondering about is whether, I'm just thinking, Councillor, I don't mean to disrespect at all, but I'm just wondering about whether or not you want to sort of burn your powder on 1.5 million, or you actually want to keep that powder dry for a bigger conversation when it comes to the really big money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I'm hearing that.
Is that right?
And what I would.
My name is Chairman. So as we've been working through this Queenstown business case, we have raised a while ago the whole affordability issue, not just for the next big whack, but also for this, and this is why it's cropped up now, but we've raised that, and in fact, I think that's been flagged in the paper that's going to their board around the Queenstown business case.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, I appreciate where that was, and if you had to choose Arthur or Martha, but at this stage, this is the next 2 years when Queenstown's really hurting, and at the end of that time, we don't know where we'll be going in the future, and it won't stop me having another go at the rest of the big project with government. I do appreciate, but I don't think we've used up our powder at that point.
Right. Taking that both on board, I think the key to this will be, if this motion passes, will be the construct of that letter, Chair.
Sorry?
Say yes. Yes.
Just general manager, so
just say yes. And all I'm saying is that the key message, the key to this whole, if that passes, will be the construct of that letter, showing that we do still. We're still really shouldering responsibility.
Really, just looking for a funder to reduce the impact on the local ratepayer, and I don't see any change in terms of our role with the public transport enhancement that we are committed to at this stage going forward for Queenstown.
So I'll put the motion. We have a mover and seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
He was the first here today, to be fair.
Against? Just Councillor Scott against. Carried. We move to 10.1.
Sorry about that.
1221.
Yes.
Resolutions
to endorse, yeah.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Moved Councillor
Wilson.
Seconded Councillor Robertson.
Oh.
All those in favour?
Aye.
We go to 10.2, which is recommendations of the 17th of February 2021 Ordinary Subcommittee, publicly excluded. We have a mover for that.
I'll move that.
Councillor Calvert, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Discussed it at length. We just before I close, we had a request from Councillor Wilson at the start of the meeting, a councillor response. I'll take that on board with you and shape that with you. We also had a motion put forward by Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott and I had talked that through, and we're going to carry that through into the normal time schedule and put it in the appropriate time frame. So
That's exactly how I thought it would be worked. So that sounds great.
So staff, thanks very much for your attendance and your assistance when required. And I just
Haven't we got something else to do?
No, I think no.
Yeah, there's
it might seem as though I've been into someone's gin bottle, but I haven't. But I enjoyed reading just about every part of it. So the reports are